welcome back to the Ice Vision podcast. It's been a little while since we had an episode out, about 2 weeks, which is a longer stretch than I was hoping to have. But got to find a job. Is finished up school now and everything. Marks were all good, and yeah, got to try and find work. Can't be a full-time podcaster yet. So hopefully something comes along. But for now, we got hockey to talk about. The NHL playoffs have been great. CHL playoffs been great, and the World U18 Championships are going on right now. That's with Tampa being out of the playoffs. That's what I am focusing on now. So yeah, yeah. I guess on that depressing note, we can jump kind of right into the NHL playoffs and talk about the Lightning and Panthers series, which just ended last night. Panthers beat the Lightning 4-1, and some of the games were a little closer than maybe the series would go by, but overall, the Lightning just couldn't get anything going. The Panthers' forecheck was a major issue the entire series, and that's going to be a major issue going forward. I'm going to say, and this could just me being a biased Tampa fan talking about this, but I really do think the Panthers are going to win the cup now because they look dominant. I don't think I've gotten to at least see a game of every series so far, and the Panthers have looked so good even with injuries to players, or not injuries, suspensions to a player like Aaron Ekblad, who was out for a little while. They've just looked so good, and they still got some depth issues. Don't get me wrong, I still think Seth Jones is a player you can't trust overall, but even on the power play he looked all right. So yeah, the Panthers are going to be a real problem. The Lightning power play struggled a lot, and it wasn't just because they weren't playing good. The Panthers penalty kill did a really good job of keeping the Lightning out of the zone. They just couldn't get in, get set up, and that's that aggressive penalty kill, especially aggressive holding the line and stuff. Sam Reinhart, Alexander Barkov, like these guys were just dominant. They shut down the Lightning's top players. Kucherov could barely get anything going. That's been a kind of a prevailing theme lately with him in the playoffs is he can't get any goals, which he is more a distributor and he's at his best when he's a playmaker, but still they have really struggled. Point, I've struggled to get stuff going too. Like what did he even have in the playoffs here? Postseason stats 2024, 2025. Yeah, because yeah, Jake Gensel. I mean, Gensel was incredible. Before we get too ahead of ourselves, Jake Gensel had a really good series, and I mean, he's always been a playoff performer, right? He scored some big goals at big moments. It's just the rest of the team couldn't seem to get anything going. I believe, yeah, he had two power play goals. I think the only one with power play goals on the team, and was just that much better than everybody else, right? He was the best player for Tampa for sure. Just the rest of the team couldn't get anything going. Kucherov had 4 assists. He had 4 points in 5 games, which is below his standards. I mean, he won the Art Ross this year with 120 points. He's got to be above that. And he had 30 goals. So, he's still capable of scoring goals. It's just, and I mean, I'm ragging on the players a little bit, but honestly, it was just that Florida was that good on the forecheck. Tampa couldn't get anything going. And I hate to say it, but I do think it was a bit of a coaching issue as well because Tampa, especially this year, I know there's a guy I follow, Jack Han. If anybody you're on Twitter looking for some hockey, looking to learn a little bit about hockey tactics or anything, Jack Han's a great follow. But he mentioned that in his time watching Tampa this season, they go for stretch passes and really try to stretch the neutral zone more than any other team. And Florida just did a great job using their forecheck and clogging up the middle. It wasn't stretch patches. The Lightning would ice the puck. They wouldn't get controlled zone entries. They'd have to try and dump it in. And Florida's D are mobile enough that it's just hard to forecheck them. Tampa's forecheck wasn't doing a good job either. When we could get things going, when Gord was out there, he was able to get some stuff going, and even Point, he was able to get some stuff going on the forecheck. But yeah, the Lightning really struggled on the forecheck. They struggled, in the rush. They struggled just to create any offense whatsoever. If you watch any of those games, we're spending a lot of our time in our zone, and it was just a huge issue. Another issue was discipline, and now it was a pretty emotional series. We'll get into the suspensions, the lack of suspensions, lack of penalties getting called, stuff like that. But there was a lot of emotions and just a lot of penalties taken by the Lightning that I thought didn't need to be taken. There's a lot of lazy penalties and maybe some that were maybe not playoff penalties, but at the end of the day, the rule book is getting called. It's on you if you take a penalty, right? It doesn't matter if it's the playoffs or not. So you can't use that as an excuse. And it's not like Florida didn't get penalties called on them as well. I know obviously the Ekblad hit, the 5 minute should have been a 5 minute major, but he ended up getting a 2 game suspension. So I mean the league at least got that right. The refs maybe didn't get it right, but I mean that happens. You have to play through it. But the Lightning, like they'd get caught out of position, get caught flat footed. I want to say Chernak, it happened to him a lot. Lilleberg, I think it happened to a few times as well. Just get caught flat footed and take a stupid hooking penalty or holding penalty, stuff like that, and the Panthers capitalized. Game one, I recall too, it was the coach's challenge right after a goal failed, and then they scored like 10 seconds after, and that basically put game one away too. Which, I mean, the Lightning were kind of battling back at that point in game one. Like, if you can take game one, this series might look very different, right? But overall, yeah, it was very frustrating to watch, and I think that's mostly Florida, right? Their heavy forecheck style, the way they support the defensemen, the way the defensemen hold the line, like it's hard to get the puck out against them. And I mean, Tampa is one of the better teams at getting the puck out of their own end too in the league. It's part of why they've been so good this year. Now a lot of it was through those stretch passes and stuff, but yeah, Florida was really good at clogging up the middle of the ice. And like honestly, I said at the start of the podcast, I think they're going to win the cup. I think they're going to win the East for sure, and they probably are a pretty decent favorite for the Cup, barring maybe a return some injured players on the Western side, and we'll talk about that other team in a bit here. Um, but yeah, getting into the suspensions and issue stuff, the Hagel hit on Barkov, that's a suspension. It was a violent hit. It was a hit that could definitely cause injury to Alexander Barkov, one of the biggest stars in the game right now, and the puck was nowhere near. Like Hagel shouldn't be throwing a hit there. I get it. That happens in hockey. You're going into the corner. I've done it myself, when I was playing minor hockey, you don't really think, and you just throw your shoulder into a guy trying to, even in some cases you're just trying to hold position, right? But it was very clearly he was trying to be physical. The Kachuk hit on Gensel was very similar. It just wasn't as violent. Me personally, I would have liked to see a game suspension just to kind of keep things consistent because it was a late hit. It's not like Kachuk, saw Gensel have the puck, start to make the hit, and then Gensel got rid of it. No, the puck was gone before Kachuk even started to throw the hit. And I know, some people are going to say that's physical hockey. No, it's dirty hockey. Like, it was a dirty play. You shouldn't be throwing a hit at that point in time, but I mean, whatever. And then the Ekblad hit, I cannot imagine anybody is trying to defend that hit. That is the most blatant forearm to the side of the head. Hagel's still out, likely concussion issues. I don't know if they've confirmed what the issues are, but yeah, like that was a dirty hit in 2 games. To me personally, feels low, but in the regular season that would have been 5 or 6, so it does kind of make sense. A playoff game in the league's eyes is worth more when it comes to suspensions. I personally don't agree with that mindset. I think if it's going to be a 5-6 game suspension in the regular season, it should be in the playoffs. But whatever, they got the suspension right. Would have been nice to get a 5-minute major on that too, but it didn't really matter. I mean, 30 seconds after that hit happened, the Lightning had scored 2 goals. So, I mean, what the worst that happens is they do the same thing 5-on-5 and then still lose the game. So, the only other thing that may have helped is, Ekblad would have been removed from the game, which may have helped the Lightning actually win that game. But I mean, it's hard. You can't play that what if game, right? So, yeah, definitely it's not like even though Lightning take that game, I don't think they win the series just because Florida's forecheck was too good and Tampa couldn't make an adjustment. It was very unfortunate. Like I said, they were my cup favorite. My bracket is all screwed up now just because of that. They were my cup contender, but yeah, the one saving grace I will say for the Lightning as a Lightning fan is a lot of these players are returning next year. We hopefully will actually get to see Bjorkstrand in a playoff series next year. He's a very good player and would have helped them a lot this series. I believe Gord is still around next year. Like everybody is under contract, so they get one more shot. I would say one, if not maybe 2 more, if they can extend a couple people. And with the cap going up, there might be some free agents they can take a run at in the offseason too. But you know, maybe a Mitch Marner. I don't know if they won't have the room for that, but it's nice to think about, right? But yeah, it's unfortunate. Like I said, I was pretty upset with how the series went, considering that they were my cup favorite. But it's not much you can do with it, right? Moving on to the other series that is going to screw up my bracket, and I guess I should have went with my gut on it. Uh, Dallas Stars and Colorado Avalanche currently 3-2. So I mean, the Avalanche could come back, but Dallas has definitely looked like the better team. They've been obviously there's holes in the lineup, and Colorado's been able to exploit that, especially on the left side with the defensemen. Goaltending's been a little shaky for Dallas, but Ottinger has really shut it down the last couple games and has been very good for them. But yeah, like there are holes Colorado's been kind of picking at, but the Stars forward depth is just too much. Like they got two first lines, a second line, and maybe a fourth line. So like this team is very deep at the forward end, and it's just wave after wave. Like I think all of them are playing roughly the same amount of minutes, and Dallas or Colorado just doesn't have the depth to keep up with them at the forward end, and that's why Dallas is ahead in this series here. I knew I should have trusted my gut, but that's going to screw up my bracket too because I thought the injuries to a guy like Robertson and a guy like Heiskanen were going to hurt Dallas quite a bit more. It's obviously not happening. So good on Dallas. And now, yeah, I think the Cup final is going to be Dallas, Florida, because if Dallas is this good with how they are now, and they get Heiskanen back for the next round, and maybe a Jason Robertson, then look out. This is going to be a dominant team. So yeah, not much more to say on that series. I've only got to watch a few of the games. I think I got to watch a win for each team or something like that. By no means are the Avalanche playing bad, and Gabriel Landeskog has been absolutely lights out for them. Alongside, I mean, Nathan McKinnon struggled to put the puck in the net a little bit, but he's still been very good. But yeah, the Stars, I think, are going to take this series, and at this point, the way they look, I think they're going to take the West. So good shout out to the Stars, and good on them for that. And then moving on to the Blues and Jets. Now, this series, I've watched a decent amount of the games, but mostly on the side. I mean, it's always going on when there's other games going on. Starting out, the Jets look really good. The first two games of the series, they look great. They're that well-oiled machine that they have been the entire season. Everything just clicks, right? From the moment the puck hits one of their defensemen, it's up ice. They're moving through their neutral zone just as a unit and scoring as a unit. So it's been really good, this series. And the Jets were playing really well. Hellebuck looks shaky, and he has the entire series. I mean, he hasn't played at the level that you expect from a player like him. But this is one of the few times where I would say that the Jets have been kind of bailing him out in a way, right? He hasn't been the best, but the team in front of him has played well enough to keep them competitive regardless. So good on them. The Blues, they really had a massive turnaround in game three. And I mean, they have been pretty even throughout the series. They had stretches like in games one and two where they looked like the better team as well. And the Jets just the comeback machines, right? I don't know how many times they did it in the regular season as well. 10 minutes left in the third, they decide they're going to come back and win a game. So the Jets have did that the first two games, and then games three and four, the Blues were able to hold down the fort and, well, hold down the fort. They blew them out of the water, right? And again, that goes back to Hellebuck just not being great thus far. And there's a couple of reasons as to why that could be the case, why Hellebuck seems to struggle in the postseason. I honestly think it's the style he plays is very much, he likes to play the numbers game, is how I've heard it described. He stays a little further back in his crease, but makes sure that he is quick enough to get across the crease, right? So stand a little further back, that means it's a quicker push to get the other side on like those cross slot passes and stuff. And it works really well in the regular season, but it does leave holes in him. And I wonder if, teams, when it comes to the playoffs, they're able to pre-scout him a little more, able to recognize those holes a little better, and the players are just at more of an advantage in the playoffs because they're focusing more on beating him. In the regular season, you don't have to worry about playing Hellebuck 4 games in a row in trying to beat him. And so I wonder if now that we're in the playoffs and the team is solely focused on beating the Jets right now, they have just the opportunity to just watch the tape, see where the holes are, and prepare for him. And that's why the Blues have been so good at beating him throughout this series. Now, that's just a thought. I don't really know if that's what is happening, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Blues video scout. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I can almost guarantee the team has done a lot of video work on Hellebuck going into the series, and that's just my guess as to why Hellebuck seems to struggle. It's just his style of play. He's not overly athletic. He's not making those diving across the crease saves that you see a guy like Vasilevsky make, or UC Saros has been like that in the past. He's not that. He is very calm, collected, slide, get in front of the puck and just play the numbers game, right? And right now it's beating the Jets a little bit. Though last game I didn't get to watch, but the Jets came back and they're ahead in the series again. And if they can keep the style of play they've kept through most of the season, I think they can take the series for sure. I think these teams are very even. The Blues and Jets are very even, especially the way the Blues played towards the end of the season, the way the Jets are playing like the entire season. The Blues aren't a second wildcard team. This is unfortunate for the Jets. They should be playing an easy team here. They're playing possibly one of the toughest matchups they could play in the West. So, yeah, that's very interesting. But it'll be a fun series to see the closeout. So now that the Lightning are on, hopefully I'll get to watch a little closer one of the games and just see what is really going on in the tactical battle, right? Moving on, another series in the West, the Oilers and Kings. Now, this is another series that, much like the Blues and Jets, it looked like it was going to be a sweep early on, or maybe a gentleman's sweep or something. The Kings got out to a very early 2-0 lead, and they looked dominant. The Oilers were not able to compete with them. Their depth is just too much. The Oilers don't have a ton of depth up front. Outside of McDavid and Draisaitl, Hyman, they don't have a ton of players that can compete with elite players like the Kings have up and down the lineup. But then Evander Kane came back from injury and has been better. Jeff Skinner got in for one game and he was whatever. But yeah, it's just the overall depth the Oilers had was really struggling to compete with the Kings. The Kings' power play was doing a lot of damage, and the Oilers' penalty kill wasn't doing a very good job of containing it. Adrian Kempe obviously was kind of the star of the series early on. Quentin Byfield I thought was having a great series, though it wasn't really showing up in the production side. He was still very good. And then guys like Kopitar is just always excellent, right? Like the Kings were just four lines deep. They run those lines, and their team defense was just enough to keep the Oilers at bay through the first two games. Something changed between well, it was really that third period of game four is where things really changed, and but the Oilers were able to sneak out a win in game three, and then the third period of game four, it looked like the Oilers were down, and then they roared back and were just dominant. And like I don't know what changed because then I got to watch all of game five, and the Oilers controlled play nonstop throughout. I want to say the shots were like 50-20 or something like that, or around that range. And yeah, the Oilers were just on them all game. The Kings couldn't break the puck out of their end. They be constantly turning it over, and they couldn't hold any sustained pressure on the Oilers. And shout out a guy like Evan Bouchard, who went under a lot of fire early on in the series. He has been excellent for the Oilers lately. A big part of why they hold the puck or can get the puck out of their end so quick and just continue the attack, right? Jake Wallman's also been very good. Nurse is hit or miss, don't get me wrong, but I think has even been better the last couple of games. And then Calvin Pickard, I mean, I'm not going to say he's been good because I don't think his numbers are great, but he's making the key stops when the Oilers need him, and that's been a big part of why they've been able to hold on in this series. Um, yeah, moving on. So that's another one. I think the last game is tonight, or game six is tonight or tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see if the Kings can refine their early form and make this a 7-game series, or what's going to happen. But anyways, that'll be another fun one to watch. So at this point, I do think the Oilers are going to get through, and it'll be interesting to see what they can do against either the Wild or the Knights, which has been a much closer series. Speaking of that series, that's another one that the Knights won the game one, and then the Wild roared back and got game two and three, and it looked like Kaprizov and the Wild Stars were just gonna run away with the series. The Wild don't have a ton of depth up front. You have a little more depth on the back end, especially with Z Boyum coming in, but Boyum is a rookie, and he certainly looked like a rookie at times in this series. But you know, uh, they just don't have the depth to compete with Vegas, and that's what I thought going into the series. But Kaprizov is reminding everybody why he was the Hart favorite back in December. Obviously, injuries basically ruined that for him, but he is potentially there's a real chance that Kaprizov is a top five player in the world right now. Might be the best winger in the game. If we get a full season of production out of him and see what he can do, it'll be very interesting to see what he does next year fully healthy. Boldy has also been great next to Kaprizov. Eriksson Ek has been very good as well. And then on the back end, like I said, they don't have a ton of depth at D, but they have more than they have at the forward end. But Brodin, Faber, like they have made it very hard for the Knights to score, or they were making it hard for the Knights to score. I believe Jack Eichel and Mark Stone have kind of come alive now in the last little bit, and that's why the Knights have been able to regain control of the series. And it's just, again, it's that over a long period of time, you pick Vegas's depth over most teams, right? They're similar to the Kings in the way that they can just run four lines at you. Again, I still think their wingers are weak, but they continue to prove me wrong. So I'm probably wrong about that at this point. But even in the decor, their third pairing is better than some teams' first pairings. Like it's very tough to beat a team that has that much depth. And then when you add a guy like Eichel up front, who, obviously is known for his offense, but has been a very good two-way center for a long time now in Vegas, next to Mark Stone as well, who's one of the best two-way players in the league. Like, it's just a very tough lineup to beat. And I think that's why the Knights have been able to take control of this series again, and why I think they will likely win. It'll be interesting to see now in round two, if what I think is going to happen happens, and we get to see the Knights versus the Oilers because the Knights are in a lot of ways just the Kings but better, and the Kings have already given the Oilers some trouble. But we'll talk more about that potential matchup when it actually happens, or if it's going to actually happen. Obviously, the Oilers beat the Knights last year, if I remember correctly, so it can be done. Obviously, there was a little more depth on the Oilers last year, but it'll be interesting to see, anyways. Then we can move on. The last series that is not done yet, and then we'll get into the series that have ended. Leafs Senators. This series should be over. This should have been the one that was over first, just the way the schedule worked out. But the Leafs are being the Leafs, and now out of what was a 3-0 series is now a 3-2 series, and the Senators have looked pretty good. I haven't watched the last two games because I assumed that the Leafs were going to dominate, but the Leafs or Senators are roaring back. A 4-0 win was the last game, so I think the Leafs need to realize that while the Senators definitely are the weaker team, they still have skill up front. Brady Tkachuk is a very good player. Tim Stützle is a very good player. Um, Thomas Chabot, who's their other defenseman? Jake Sanderson. Yeah, that's the guy. He was great for Team USA. He was kind of called in last minute, and a lot of people didn't really know why he got the call. And then they saw over the Four Nations that Jake Sanderson is a legitimately good player. So yeah, I think it's going to be very tough, or the Leafs need to realize that this isn't going to be an easy series. Not to mention, they need to remember that on the other side, in the crease, is a goalie in Linus Hallmark who played for Boston, who was a legitimate issue for Toronto for years, both in the regular season and in the playoffs. So, yeah, the Leafs have to realize that this isn't going to be an easy series. It's not going to be easy to close out. I think they realize that now. I think, after game four, they were like, yeah, whatever. They got one. Game five, I think they realized, oh, like this team is still here to play, and that was the 4-0 blanking. Matthews also has struggled to put the puck in the net, which is kind of a continued theme from the regular season, though he was better in the second half. The goal scoring isn't quite there, and I still question if he's playing injured or if he's changed his game, or maybe playing under Berube and the new system is maybe stemming his offense a little bit. He's still an elite defensive player. Marner's still an elite defensive player, but the production just hasn't been there, at least in terms of scoring goals from Austin Matthews. Marner's been great. I honestly think the Leaf Stars have been very good this series, and this is maybe an issue a little bit of the Leafs' depth not being able to help when their stars don't score, which has been a continued theme for years. But they have the star power that they should just be scoring regardless. Of course, that's not even talking about Matthew Nyes, who has been excellent, and I mean his game is built for the playoffs, right? Anthony Stolarz has been very good as well, though the last game wasn't great. This team should win, and they should give Florida a run for their money in the second round. I think Florida will win because, all the issues that Toronto had playing, or that Tampa had playing against Florida, Toronto's going to run into the same issues, and they arguably don't have the firepower that Tampa had. That's going to make it even harder for them. So again, we can talk about potential series when they actually come to pass, and we know that we're for sure getting those series. But for now, at this midway point or towards the end of the first round, the Leafs need to wake up, or this is going to be another choke. And Marner leaves in the offseason and they blow the team up because, where do you go from there? So it's going to be interesting to see how this series ends. And also just shout out to the Senators for not just rolling over and dying, right? A lot of teams did that. Tampa, for example, so it's very good shout on them and on this young team. This is a good experience for them, even if they don't end up taking the series. And then to move on to the series that are over, Hurricanes Devils, I didn't watch at all because I thought that was going to be a sweep, and it ended up being the gentleman's sweep. The Devils were able to make it interesting, anyways. I really wish the Devils were healthy because in the little bits and pieces I saw, this Devils team showed that they are dangerous. They scared the Hurricanes a few times, obviously with the Game 4 win, and then in Game 5 they were up right until the Hurricanes kind of roared back to force overtime. And obviously the Hurricanes were still ended up being the first team to move on, but the Devils showed that they can hang with him or hang with this team just if the team's fully healthy. I know Jonas Siegenthaler, geez, that's a tough name to say. He came back midway through the series, which really shored up the decor for the Devils. But they're missing Jack Hughes and they're missing Dougie Hamilton. That's two huge parts of this team's offense, and a big part of this team overall is that run and gun offense. It's what makes them so dangerous. So hopefully those guys can get healthy. I know you're talking about Hughes and Hamilton who have spent their entire careers injured, but hopefully we can get a healthy season out of those guys, and next year maybe run this series back and see what it looks like, right? So, but anyways, congrats to the Hurricanes. And then Capitals Canadians. Game 3 made it interesting. Again, this is another series I didn't watch a whole bunch. There's tons of hockey on. I'm not even talking about the CHL playoffs and everything else I've been trying to watch. But this series was another one that I thought was going to be a sweep or maybe 5 games or something, and it ended up being 5 games. The Canadians did show they can hang, though, and that's much like what I mentioned with the Senators. This is a good experience for this young team, and arguably even more important for this Canadians team because they're so ahead of schedule, right? This is definitely something they can build upon. So really good for them. And players like Lane Hudson, I think he struggled a little bit. That's just the size issue. Those small defensemen do struggle to perform in the playoffs, but I don't think it was anything major. He's also a rookie too, so I mean that's a part of it as well. He's gonna have to learn. Watch some Cale Makar tape, watch some Quinn Hughes tape, watch how those guys adapt to the playoffs because he's got a play style that is going to be very exciting going forward. I mean, he's a Calder Trophy frontrunner, probably the favorite to win, I would bet. And he's an exciting player. Another one, Ivan Demidov, didn't really get the ice time that I wish they would have given him, but I understand because he's new. Like he's played 4 games in the NHL, or what it'd be like 7, I guess, at this point, and so they limited his minutes. But going into next year, I mean, he's the Calder favorite next year, starting right now, as far as I'm concerned. So again, those are 2 guys you can build around. Not to mention Cole Caulfield, who I thought had a really good run in the playoffs. Nick Suzuki, another young center they're building around. He's slowly cementing himself, and he's proven me wrong almost every year because I thought that's a guy that you can't have as your first line center or a cup contender. But if he continues the level of play he showed in the second half of this season, this Canadian team is going to be dangerous. And then the Capitals, the Capitals, I think a very easy comparison if you want to talk about the West versus the East is they're very similar to the Kings. And just they have depth at every position. They play a great team game, and they have some star power. Don't get me wrong, but even Alex Ovechkin, he's not the player he used to be. Dylan Strome has been probably their probably their most consistent forward this season. I know there's kind of a more of a by committee thing with them. And then Ilya Protas is a great young player who has done really well for them. Sorry, Alexei Protas, Ilya, the younger brother, also a Capitals prospect, plays for Windsor, I believe. But yeah, I mean, good on the Capitals as well. Again, I didn't watch a ton of these last 2 series that we're talking about just because I figured they were going to be quick sweeps. But, you know, it's going to be an interesting second round. It's going to be fun to see. I think the Hurricanes are going to take it. This is one series that we know for sure is happening. I think the Hurricanes take it just because between the Capitals and the Hurricanes, they're both deep teams that kind of lack star power. Just think the Hurricanes are deeper. They play a better team game overall. They have just better players at every position, even though, they're not necessarily those star players. I'd take Sebastian Aho over any of the Capitals forwards. I take Jacob Slavin over any of the Capitals defensemen. Maybe Decor is a bit of a toss up. I don't remember if I know the Capitals goalie got hurt. I don't know if he's back yet. Logan Thompson, I don't know if he's back yet. But even Charlie Lindgren was very good as well for the Capitals in the past. So maybe a bit more of a toss-up, but Freddie Anderson is a very good goalie and very capable goalie if he's back. I also think he got injured now that I think about it. I don't remember. I didn't pay enough attention to these series apparently. But anyways, that's my overview of how the first round of the playoffs have gone so far. And once all the series are wrapped up, we'll be back and talk a little more about what's coming next for the NHL playoffs in the second round. Anyways, let's move on to the World U18 Championships. Now, a lot of people probably don't know this is going on because it doesn't get the fanfare that the World Juniors get at the end of December. And, it's just not an opportune time, really, because it's going on in the NHL playoffs and stuff. But still a very exciting tournament. All these players, again, U18, so all these players are getting drafted either this coming year or next year. So it's a very important tournament if you're scouting players, right? There's probably tons of scouts. I saw a tweet from Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects, who is down there watching all the games live, and he figures there's more scouts in the stands than there are fans, which makes sense. It's in Texas too, which isn't exactly a hockey hot market, or maybe a junior hockey market. Anyways, I know the Stars get pretty good attendance, but anyways, like it's definitely a very fun tournament, and we're going into the semifinals tomorrow. Canada's playing Slovakia tomorrow, and the U.S. is playing Sweden. So, and those have been pretty much the 4 best teams. Czechia, you can maybe argue, is better than Slovakia, but they had the unfortunate issue of running into Canada early on. and that's why they haven't made it. Canada should, by all accounts, play for the gold. They should play for the gold, in which they won the gold last year. Interesting because they're missing pretty much all their best players at this level. Obviously, Michael Misa could play, but he's out with injury, so he's not playing. Matthew Schaefer would be the best defenseman at this tournament, but he's out with injury. Still injured from the collision in the World Juniors where he broke his collarbone. That's been a long recovery for him. Going to be interesting to see how that affects him at the draft. And then Gavin McKenna, obviously, and we'll talk about him a little more with the Medicine Hat Tigers, but he's still with the Tigers in the WHL. Uh, Making their playoff run, they've been absolutely dominant. He's on a 53 game point streak since the World Juniors ended, which is just absurd. And yeah, but anyways, he would be the best player at this tournament easily. Not even eligible for the draft this year. He's eligible for 2026. So yeah, Canada has been very good so far, and there's been quite a few players that have been very good. So just a couple that have stood out. Braden Coots. This is a guy that I've watched a couple times in the WHL this year, but haven't got a long look at him. And this has been probably his best showing of the season, I think. I think his draft stock is going up quite a bit this year. I had him towards the end of the first round, and I might have him more as a mid first now at this point. He's an excellent player. He is a very good two-way center. Great focus down the middle, great attention to detail in the defensive end. And then one thing that I think is underrated about his game, doesn't necessarily have a great offensive profile, but he's a really good playmaker. The shot is there, but it's the playmaking that really stands out when it comes to the offensive side of his game, and it's really showing at the tournament this far. I believe he's leading Canada in scoring right now, though I think part of that is because a guy like Cole Reshny wasn't there until halfway through the tournament. But yeah, Coots has been great thus far. He's Canada's captain. He has been leading by example and been probably the best player on the team thus far. Another guy on the complete opposite end, guy eligible for the 2026 NHL draft, Xavier Villeneuve. He has been incredible. He is a 5'8" defenseman out of the QMJHL, plays for the Armada, and he is just one of the most fun players to watch. You like watching Lane Hudson, you know, cross people up in the offensive zone, use their edge work to eliminate defenders, and just dish the puck and create scoring chances out of what looks like nothing. Xavier Villeneuve is that guy. And, he looks like, it's very early to say that he could be like the next Lane Hudson, but seriously, this guy is absolutely dominant. It'll be interesting to see next year. I think there's some interest from the NCAA with this guy if he stays in the queue, because he lit up the queue this year, 60 points in 60 games or something like that, which is pretty good for a draft -1 defenseman. He could push for maybe 100 points next year, depending on how the Armada's team looks. But yeah, he is absolutely dominant. He's been Canada's power play quarterback, and big part of why their power play has been very good. But yeah, and then moving on to the other guy that is in contention for probably the best player on Canada's team, and that's Brady Martin. Now, whichever team picks this team guy at the draft, I think most mock drafts had him going around the 15 range. He might go in the top 10 after this tournament because he has been incredible. And he's just a player that teams are going to fall in love with because he's 100%. He's effort. He has put his head down and grind in the corners and fight for the puck. And he has legitimate offensive talent, but where he thrives is that he is just the hardest working guy on the ice. Every time he gets out there, he'll hit everything that moves. He'll go hard in the net with a stick on the ice, but he's not scared. He's a great skater. He's not scared to attack the middle and try to make a skilled play as well. Sometimes it bites him and he turns the puck over, but you love to see that he's just willing to make that creative play as well. He's not just a one-dimensional grinder. He has some skill to his game as well. In the NHL, he'll likely lock in as either a top line or a second line winger. Uh, with some good offense. At the very minimum, he'll be a third liner and be an excellent third liner that whoever he plays for, the team's just going to fall in love with him. The fans are going to fall in love with him. And he's been a great player for Canada. Between him and Coots, they have led this offense thus far. And yeah, so good on them as well. And then the other guy, another defenseman, probably Canada's best defenseman. I know Villeneuve is the guy that's getting all the talk about him, but Jackson Smith has probably been Canada's best defenseman thus far, and he's been just steady. He's a good offensive player. He's probably going to go second or third as far as where defensemen get picked in the draft this year. He'll go, probably in just outside the 10 range, I would think. But yeah, he's a very good player, very good offensive player, and he steps up in big moments. The amount of game-winning goals he has for his team in the WHL, the Tri-City Americans this season, was insane. I think all 6 of his goals were OT goals or go-ahead game-winning goals. So, uh, that stands for something too. He's got that ice in his veins, if you want to say it or whatever, right? And yeah, he's a great puck-moving defenseman. He has some good defensive upside, though he does get caught. And it's a bit of getting caught going forward, and I do think he struggles a little bit just transitioning from forward to backwards when he's skating back on defense, which allows players to beat him every once in a while, which I think is an issue. But yeah, overall, he's a very solid two-way defenseman. I think he'll play in the NHL a very long time. It's just tough to say whether he'll be as a top six or a top four defenseman, or if he can push into the top two. I do think he needs to work, add a little more offense to his game because it's kind of one-dimensional. He's a good playmaker, he's a good skater and everything, but he's not dynamic enough, I don't think, to really hit that upper echelon of offensive defenseman, a guy like Cale Makar or something like that. Obviously, very few hit that level, but yeah, it's Jackson Smith probably, like I said, maybe he'll go top three as far as where defensemen are taken in the draft. I think maybe four. Some teams might have Sean Aitchison above him. I don't personally, and we can talk a little bit more about Aitchison in another podcast. But yeah, Jackson Smith is just an incredible player, and he's been great for Canada at the U18s. And just to highlight too, because a couple other guys, Canada's decor at this U18 Championships, they're basically all strong puck movers, which is a huge turnaround from the World Juniors where we had one puck mover that we took, and then he got injured 4 games into the tournament, and it's a huge part of why the team was unsuccessful this past year at the World Juniors. This year we have basically every defenseman we have is capable of moving the puck very well. And yeah, that's a big part of why the offense has been so good at this tournament for Canada. And I believe a lot of our leading scorers are defensemen as well. So I mean, that's just interesting. I'm interested to see if that's a change in mindset from Hockey Canada. Maybe we're going to try and finally play with a little more skill at these tournaments. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it's interesting that basically everybody can move the puck. Ryan Lynn's another guy out of the WHL. He's eligible for next year's draft, and he's been very good. Keaton Verhoff was late coming to the tournament, but he's a great offensive defenseman too. And again, these guys have some two-way upside. They're all good skaters and are able to use that to close off gaps and stuff, and defend the line and all that. But offense is their bread and butter. I want to say four of the seven defensemen that have played at Canada so far at this tournament have put up at least 50 points in the CHL this past season. So, they're offensive focused for sure. And so it'll be interesting to see going forward if we see that at the World Juniors this coming year. Maybe finally they'll take like a Zane Parekh. I don't know if Parekh can play at this point, but he should have been at the World Juniors last year. It'll be interesting to see if this year they finally decide that they can take all defensemen. And it would be even more interesting if a guy like Len Dupont could be there too, who may end may have been Canada's best defenseman at this tournament. Smith might still have been better at this point, but Dupont is an excellent player as well. I'm getting off topic here, but shout out him in his run with the Everett Silvertips. 15 points in 10 games as a 15-year-old defenseman in the WHL playoffs was absurd. They pushed the Spokane Chiefs to 7 games. The Chiefs obviously came out at the end. But yeah, that was very exciting, and it's very exciting to see where that guy or where the production is going to go in the coming years for him. And if we can finally see him at some of these World Junior Championships, hopefully maybe in December we'll get to see him there. Then the final guy I want to talk about for Canada, he was late coming into the tournament, teammate of Keaton Verhoff, Cole Reshney. And by the end of the tournament, he will likely be Canada's best forward. He has been great, just a dynamic player. He had 90 points in the WHL this season. In the playoffs, I want to say he had 30 points in 15 games or something. Like, he was just absurd. He was Victoria's best player for sure in the playoffs, but they just weren't able to get it done. Lacked a little bit of depth in the playoffs compared to some of the teams where they were coming up against. But yeah, Reshney was very good. Has been very good thus far. Obviously, I don't know if anybody saw the game-winning goal that he scored just recently to beat Czechia in overtime, but assisted by Verhoff, his teammate as well. But yeah, he's been very good, a good pickup for them, and that's going to be key because what I'm getting to here is that Canada will likely beat Slovakia, and they'll play one of Sweden or the U.S. in the final. And it's going to be interesting to see because I do think the U.S. has the stronger team this year, at least at forward. They definitely do. Colin Potter's been playing on the third line, and he might be the best forward at this tournament. That's how good this team is. But even Sweden too, their top six is gross. Vigo Bjork, Anton Frundell, Victor Eklund. Like, these are all guys that over the next 2 years are going to be some of the top drafted players. Frundell and Eklund, I think, both go in the top 10 this year at the draft. Vigo Bjork is potentially a top 5 pick next year in the NHL draft. Like, these are high-end talents and very good players. It's going to be interesting to see how Canada can compete with them because they got some good players. Don't get me wrong, but Cole Reshney is arguably their most skilled player, and I'd be surprised if he was in the top 10 at the draft this year in picks. And really, Canada doesn't have anybody that might be in the top 10, maybe Jackson Smith, but that's still kind of up in the air, you know. And this is common for Canada at this tournament. Don't get me wrong. We typically never take our best players because a lot of them are still in either CHL playoffs or out with injury after the CHL playoffs. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the team can kind of come together and make a bit of a run and maybe come away with a back-to-back gold medal, which, as far as I know, Canada has never done at this tournament. So, yeah, interesting to see, and it is encouraging, really, though, to see a guy like Braden Coots, to see Brady Martin, to see Cole Reshney stepping up and having some really good offensive numbers at this tournament. So, yeah, it's exciting, and go check out the tournament. You go watch it. It's on TSN. It's some of the best hockey you'll get to watch. It's very exciting. And yeah, I just wish this tournament got more coverage because it's a lot of fun. And with that, I think we did a good coverage today of the NHL playoffs, of the World U18 Championships. I think that was a lot of fun. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the CHL playoffs, but we're running out of time, and I don't want to keep everybody here for an hour listening to me yap about hockey. So next episode, we will sit and focus a little more on the WHL playoffs. They should be going into the final rounds here. Medicine Hat just got through again with a sweep. And Spokane is up 3-0 in their series currently, and they will get through very quickly, I believe. QMJHL, I haven't been following as deeply in this round, but I mean, both teams are up. I want to say 3-0. And then the London Knights have gotten through in the OHL, and I want to say the Barrie Colts are the other team that have gotten through, but I don't remember off the top of my head. But anyways, we'll talk a lot more about the CHL in the next episode. I'll get a little more up to date on those series and how the players have been doing and such. But anyways, thank you all for listening to episode 2 of the Ice Vision podcast. Hopefully we can be a little more consistent getting episodes out going forward here. So yeah, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you all in the next episode.